All right, welcome back to the Grow Like a Mother podcast. This morning I have Christina with me, and Christina's a fellow Canadian, but she's living across the pond. Christina's a spiritual alignment coach. She's an energy healer. She's a fellow author and speaker. And what she does is she helps women take spirituality off of the hobby shelf and integrate it into their everyday lives so that they can feel wholly connected to their truest selves. And what I love the most is that Christina provides practical tools that anyone, no matter their schedule, can apply to their days so that they feel grounded and connected to the energy of the universe, which is what we're all about here. Practical tips because we're busy. Basically, today we are going to dive into spirituality and how to create calm. We're going to be talking energy work, all kinds of things. So, welcome to the show, Christina.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. Even just you talking about the topics, I'm getting all chills. I'm like, oh, this
Right,
is a very aligned time to be having this conversation. So
it
that's really exciting.
is. And this is
Thank
your
you for inviting
whole
me.
life, right? Like, how did you get into this energy spiritual lifestyle?
Oh, you said we only had like 25 minutes. Short version. Honestly, even as a child, I was always feeling like there was this pull, something different. I was raised in the church, but something didn't feel aligned to this deeper calling that I had within me. And every time I just kind of pursued that deeper calling, it just seemed like synchronicities would just line up. So I was curious. And then when I was in my teens and everyone was talking about dating and things, and everyone was leaning into um, kind of how to get, just being out in the world, again, I would feel these little pulls of something different. So I started meditating in my teens and I started exploring what that meant and listening to nudges. And then all of a sudden, I landed myself in a manifestation journey without even knowing it was called manifestation, without even knowing about law of attraction and things like that. I started feeling guided to connect with someone else out there. So while everyone else was dating, I had this idea of, no, there's someone out there meant for me. And that's what I'm going to put my energy around. And then little synchronicities would flow in. And it was on that journey, I would say, that it really started to cement itself in my life. So while I was working with the idea of God or the universe or spiritual source, and I was working and connecting the other things, this desire to connect with someone else was really what gave me this foundational flow with that. Anyway, because of following through with that, 2001 came around and one thing led to another. And I suddenly found myself being basically told, spiritually guided, saying, get on a plane. And so I boarded a plane to England. I'd been here before, but not with purpose. I had been an au pair and a nanny. And I found myself boarding a plane and I found myself being nudged to come to Glastonbury, which I actually live quite near to now. And walked into a room and met the love of my life. And we were engaged within 3 weeks. And it was just this flow. It it showed me the depth that listening to your intuition and that spiritual guidance can give you. And it showed me how magical life can be. And so that's why I always say that this is how this happened. Because it wasn't, I could have lived my life the way you should do. I could have followed all the steps. I could have, done the dating scene, but because of listening to something else and every single time, I mean, I would go, like, people would ask me out on a date and I'm like, yeah, I'm sorry, you're not the guy. And they'd be like, we just met. How would you know that? And I'd be like, don't know. Just no. Sorry. And it wasn't explored. So because of learning intuitively to fine tune my intention and listen to my heart, I watched as things, I mean, literally magically, not even synchronicities, just like, oh, we're both left-handed. We were both like the same music. I had always had a key Frank Sinatra song that was our song. And our first like date, he put that on as a song. Like this was like, I always say it was the universe hitting me over the head with frying pan. This was like no questions asked. So because of that, I learned the depth of that. And then we had two little girls, 10 months apart, and I forgot all of that. And I forced myself into, well, I should do this. And as a mom, they have to do that. And we need a schedule, and we need this, and we need that. And everyone was miserable. So then again, it was this steady ebb and flow of bringing back some of the tools and deciding to listen to that intuition and connecting to my daughter's intuition and my husband's intuition and watching the magic flow again. So that's really how it began. That's how because the proof was in the pudding, as they would say. It was like, this is how this works. So yeah,
Undeniable, right?
it was undeniable. It was like, well, life is so much more juicy and expansive, and everything just makes more sense when I'm not a victim to it, when I'm actually listening deeper within myself and following the nudges and making sure. I call it being plugged into the universe. So in my mind, the universe is like an electrical current that flows all around you, and it's always there. Like electricity, it's always there. But in order to access that electricity, you have to plug in. You don't you don't go to make toast in the toaster without plugging in the toaster. You can't expect it to work. So you can't expect spirituality to work within yourself unless you plug into the universal energy circuit.
Mm-hmm. And
So it's
so,
finding your simple ways of plugging in.
is intuition sort of the starting point to plug in? Is intuition sort of the beginning part of manifesting?
Intuition is a good start of manifesting. I think in order to fully be able to trust your intuition, you have to tell your brain and program your brain to plug in, because our brains are programmed not to. Our brains, our lovely little brains, love to chatter the negatives. They love to notice what's not working. They love to be in survival mode and keep you really safe. And so what plugging in does, and there's so many different simple ways that you can plug in. It can be setting the intention of saying, okay, I'm plugging in now. Here we go. That's all it can take. It can be grounding into the earth. It can be a hands-on heart and just saying, I'm starting my day with intention. It can be a simple affirmation. Anything that takes you a step aside from the run is plugging in. It doesn't have to be a long meditation. It doesn't have to be a long sense of prayer or going to somewhere else for that. It's literally in this moment. You just plug in. So once you've plugged in, then you calm your brain down into that state of, it goes, okay, so we actually are safe. The universe does have our back. Okay, so now what's actually being led? Then you can hear your intuition, because your brain's no longer in survival mode. And that's the little key that I've found, that as long as you are seeing what you don't want and trying to protect yourself from what you don't want, that intuition can be mingled with fear and get very confusing.
Mm. Yeah, that makes good sense. That makes a lot of sense. I wonder how I have a little note here that I wanted to talk about how we can align the energetic worlds of ourself, which is our chakras, right? And that's maybe a term that people have heard but don't understand. But it feels like it fits in with this whole concept. Can you piece that together for me?
Sure. Absolutely. So the concept of the energetic worlds, it's actually from like the ancient works of like the Kabbalah or Gnostic writings as well. And then it's mingling with the idea of the chakras. So let me explain both very quickly. So the chakras is terms that everybody's gotten quite used to exploring. The idea is that you have your 7 chakras that flow through your body. So if you think linearly, there's actually quite a few other ones, but your main 7 are the ones that we focus mostly on. If you're looking at chakra work, a good way of visualizing this is if you imagine energy flowing to you from the top of your head, and you imagine it flowing like a stream, right? And in that stream, you have various whirlpools that carry that water down that stream. The whirlpools are your chakras. Sometimes in life experience, stormy days, you get clutter, you get debris in those whirlpools. So therefore, then the key is to keep them clear, to do different practices, everything from meditations to movement to the food you eat, to there's like so many different practices that you can do to clear your chakras, to clear out the clutter and create more flow. So naturally, you as an energetic being. That energy flows, and it's designed to flow all the way down through you, down your feet, into the earth, grounding you, so anchoring you into the ground. And that energy just flows down to the ground and then back up from the ground again, flowing back up, and you become a beautiful conduit of that energy. So that's aligned. If you think of you being fully aligned in that space, with all of those energy flowing in that beautiful stream. Now, the energetic world concept is that you have 4 energetic worlds, and that divides you up like that, and then lower down. The chakras are within those worlds. I use the term energetic worlds a lot because it clarifies the practices that you need to do. So say your lower chakras, your solar plexus, your stomach area, your like sense of who you are in this earth, and then your sense of safety, your nervous system, that's your physical energetic world. Sometimes people dive into spirituality, they start thinking, oh, I want to manifest, so I want to visualize, and they're in these off wild spaces, and they're like, oh, I feel so wonderful, this is great. And then they snap back into their real life, and they're like, oh my God, my kids are screaming, and the house is a mess, and that's gone. I really wish I could escape into that beautiful space. And it's because they're not feeling aligned in their physical energetic world, so they don't feel present in who they are in this life. And so manifestation, if you're feeling unsafe in this life, you actually can't get very far with it. You have to feel aligned to who you are in this present moment. Then you have like your emotional world. So it's all your heart energy, right? It's all your, even, and your throat energy. It's all that communicative expression and feeling. And that can get really clogged up if you're holding a lot of energy in your heart, if you have a lot of resentment, if you're having problems speaking your truth, your emotions just get blocked up. And it means that then again, you're not going to feel safe in your physical world, and you're also not going to be able to feel to the best of your ability. Again, not being able to attract more of what you want to feel. So the energetic worlds help you anchor in to what feels off, so then you can clear that out faster. And also the different types of practices that you can do that will then be able to get you aligned in a far faster way.
That's incredible. And you know what it makes me think of from my school days for people who may be coming from this into this conversation from more of like a sciencey type of background is like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? Like at the
Yeah.
bottom, right? You've got the safety and
Yep.
security, and you can't achieve the next level until that foundation, right? So
Yep.
that's super interesting. Now you mentioned in the different like energetic worlds and with the different where the different blockages can be, that there are different tools that we can use. Can you give us a couple examples of like, I don't know, what we can do? Like for me, I did your quiz
That was
and
great.
yeah, and it said that my heart energy was the place
Mhm.
that I needed to focus. So could you give me some examples of
Sure.
what I can do to help me with that?
Sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. There's a few things that you can do. So, first off, the heart is such an amazing space because we have a tendency to want to protect our hearts and hold on to our hearts because we think that it's very a vulnerable space. We've been told this. It's like, oh, it'll break your heart. Where actually the heart is totally capable of taking care of a huge amount of emotion. It's there actually processing it all the time, and it wants to guide you with that emotion. But we hold that energy in place. So a simple like hand on heart, just telling your heart that you're listening,
Mm.
that you love it, that it's doing its job, actually provides your heart with a sense of relief, a sense of ease. And it means that you are actually starting to listen to it more. There's, I don't know why things are falling all of a sudden in the face. I guess we hit something. Excellent. Uh, it is a question of actually knowing that your heart's field is so much stronger than your head. They've actually done a huge amount of study that shows that the field of your heart is 5 times wider and stronger than that of your head. And interestingly enough, all communication between your head and your heart is actually like the majority of it is your heart telling things to your head. Your head rarely says anything to your heart.
Mm.
And yet we listen to our heads all the time.
We
So it's
always
like
do. Yeah.
always your head is such a bad translator of what your heart is trying to tell you because it's done it through a filter of stress or worry or fear or trying to protect you from past hurt. And your heart's like, hey, I'm processing all of this down here. Don't worry about it. I'm using this information to provide you with something new. Listen to me. So even just that simple step, saying, hey, I love you. I'm listening. What do we need? Immediately drops you into that space.
Wow. I love that.
It's that simple. Another great visualization for when you put your hand on your heart is rather than putting your hand on your heart, you imagine your heart rising up to your hand.
Hmm.
And it shifts it so that you're acknowledging that your heart is a living space within you. So then it's a place that you can reside in. It's your center.
That's really helpful to visualize because when I was first learning about energy work, I was so curious and I really wanted to know, like, well, how does it work? Because it was so unseen, right? Like electricity or microwaves or the
Yep.
internet. And I was like, I had the same feeling when I was trying to understand the internet, back 20 whatever years ago.
Yeah.
Can you give us some like um mm, something to anchor in, like, what is energy so that we can feel more like tangible and physical with these concepts? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Oh,
It's such a
okay.
tough
So
one.
there's two ways of looking at this. I would say if you see it as I always like to imagine it like if you imagine you're a glass of water or a glass and water is pouring into that glass, then the water that flows is the spiritual energy that's flowing. And it fills up from the bottom and fills up, grounds you first and then fills up, covering all those energetic worlds. But to actually understand energy as energy, I would actually suggest focusing on your breath. Your breath is the only time you actually intake something from outside you within you just naturally. Okay, we eat and things like that, but still, it's the only time that something outside of you actually settles in with you and then you exchange. There's a dance there. And that's why in all spiritual practices, they talk about the breath. If you imagine the energy that's flowing as that air that's outside there, and you imagine it as a sense of well being, as a sense of it's not just, oxygen, it's not just what's out there. Imagine that it's uh, like static electricity or infused with like a love energy. I mean, we could, if we had a long time, we'd be talking about frequencies and we'd be talking about all these different tones that we could be dealing with. But if you imagine just in deep simplicity, then when you intake air, you're intaking this loving force that you are part of. And then as you exhale, you're offering your own sense of that as well. And you just practice that simple exchange like a dance. Then I think it's a really good way of actually understanding what that energy is. Because the energy really in the long run, it's love. Like if you break it all down, when we say like, people always laugh at like signing things off as love and light, but I do every email sign off as love and light because it's acknowledging that's what you are. Each person is made of love, loving energy. We're made of stardust. We're made of light. Like this is this isn't real. Quantum physics will even tell you that we are constantly, every atom of our being is always blinking on and off. Everything around you is made of energy. Everything is intangible in a lot of ways. We've just told ourselves something different.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I think starting with your breath gives you that concrete step of saying, this is what energy feels like. And remembering that anything you look at actually isn't as tangible as you might think.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. That's
I don't know if that was as simple as you wanted to go. I'm not sure.
well,
It's such a good question. Um,
it's funny because
yeah,
I think the more we hear about these concepts, it's just like any concept where we're gonna know it right? Intellectually, we're going to know, but we're not going to really like understand until the right time with the right person with the right explanation. So it's like, I don't know. I just love to be able to give as many.
And it's interesting because I think there's an interesting thing that you just said there, because it's like what we said, the heart is actually always trying to tell the brain. It's the brain that is trying to say, okay, but what? What is that? If you actually say, okay, okay, heart, actually, you know what? Let's do this. I need a good understanding or feeling of energy. What is that? And then just wait. And you might find that little things will shift. I mean, when I do, like, as an energy worker, if I do an energy clear on someone, they've never had an energy healing at all. And all of a sudden they like find that when we clear out their flow and any that clutter that we were talking about, all of a sudden they start jolting or, shivering, or little things shift. And they're like, what was that? And it's like, okay, you experience alignment of your energy. And sometimes it's actually giving yourself permission to experience it first rather than understand it first. Because the brain needs to be the last step in a lot of this work. You have to actually just, okay, another really, really good anchor, beauty. Explore beauty. Look at something that just gives you a moment of awe. There's a study that was actually done about the power of awe. I actually spoke to the people on my own podcast, and I highly recommend you check them out. Their book is called The Power of Awe, and they actually have used it as the new version of mindfulness,
Hmm.
where you look at anything, just anything, and you start with giving it attention, and then you wait, and then you exhale. And they found, like, so that's awe. There's your AWE. And I said that when you do that, when you allow yourself to sit in something with appreciation, your brain stills. And then your heart goes up and actually can express that feeling of openness for you. And then you just exhale and experience it.
Hmm.
And even in that, you will feel energy. You will feel the shift. Sometimes you can even look at things and you'll see like the little aura, the buzzing energy just above it. Play and allow yourself to experience it. And then your brain will likely be like, oh, please. And your brain will start and go, that doesn't make any sense. And you go, actually, it does. Because even scientists are catching up to this.
Mm-hmm.
So there's neural pathways and things that always need rewriting and rewording to get our brains to accept it.
Yeah.
So
And,
don't let your brain talk you out of it.
and consistency with rewiring is the way that you're going to make the change, right?
Yeah, it is. It is. Deciding that you want to experience something is actually a very good shortcut. Once you make a decision and you don't, and your brain then has to yield a little bit faster.
Right. Like what happened with you in finding your soulmate.
Yes, exactly. It's an interesting thing to experience, kind of saying, okay, actually, we're just going to do this because this is how I want this to go. Then all of a sudden you watch as your brain just goes, it does become like what they talk about in so many mindfulness classes. It becomes that well-trained dog.
Yeah.
Where it stops snapping and trying to be the boss and goes, oh, you know, we'll do it that way. All
Fine.
right. We'll do the magic.
I love that.
So, but again, nervous system regulation, making sure you feel safe in your body, making sure you're really grounded. Like it's important to also give compassion for that as well. That, we are in a very, very triggered state. Like we're not the same world that we were 22 years ago. There, in order to, I'm not saying that manifestation's not like on an all-time high, because we're also dealing with energy systems that things happen fast. Like if you are aligned, and if you do feel present in your body, and if you do feel open in your heart, and your mind is in that space of trained, and you're letting that spiritual flow in, you will be finding that things happen quickly. But nervous system regulation, turning off the things that are telling you that you're not safe, is vitally important. in
Mhm.
order to get there. And that, I think, is the hardest step, that decision to say, actually, got everything I need in this moment. I'm safe in this moment. I'm going to savor the feeling of safety in this moment. That is number one key. You have to be able to make yourself feel grounded and appreciate what you have and enjoy who you are in this moment and know that it's coming through for the next.
Mhm. I find that that for me has been the hardest thing too, because when you've got little kids who need you all the time and there's noise and distraction, and I'm someone who just needs a lot more quiet and alone
Yep.
than a mother's life allows.
Yep.
Which is why I'm so passionate about helping people like carve time for themselves. It's not just so that you have time for yourself, it's for these reasons so that you can get grounded, you can feel aligned,
Yep.
you can get the tools to calm yourself so that you can experience all of
Yes.
these other things. Because it's much like one of my favorite teachers for like money, she talks about how if you're if you're in the frequency like here, all of the money opportunities are here. But when you get to the next frequency, there's more opportunities. You just can't see them. It's the same
Yep.
with manifesting or alignment or anything.
Yep.
If you're in that sort of wounded victim, unsafe place, you're not going to see the opportunities. You've got to heal that and move to the next.
Yep. Yep. And it's always fascinating to see how right now we're in a very loud time
Oh, so loud.
where, it's so loud. And I mean, and it's always there, like you go to the grocery store and you're like, as soon as you're like, oh, I can't believe they're charging that now for this. And immediately you feel it sneak in where you're like, and I'm sucked in
Yeah.
it, and it's that constant dance of going, oh, okay, well, you know what? The more things cost, the more I can receive. And what does that feel like? And what is the frequency of well-being? And what is the expanded sense? I mean, frequency is, I wish we had hours. Um, frequency is a fascinating thing because it is like, it's just a dial on a radio station. It's just finding that frequency of like, what is the frequency I want? How do I feel safe? What's it like to feel well-being? Like how does that actually make me feel if I just call up the word well-being? And when you actually open yourself up to it, even the word well-being, we actually just did this over my membership program, even the word well-being can actually just allow well-being into your whole system.
Mm.
You just actually literally, like, it's like turning on a tap or pushing a button. You just go, okay, actually well-being. And you just settle into that feeling before going into the grocery store.
Right. Love
You
that.
know, it's like, oh, it's like adding dye to something, like, like to allow the water to kind of change color, like, like, or soaking a tea bag. The other day I did a live talking about how we are like spiritual tea bags. The flow is coming in and we're infusing it with our life experience. So therefore it's our own unique tea. Like that's what you're doing. You get to infuse it with your intention and your direction of your focus and in the open energy of your heart. And the more you're in alignment, the deeper and deeper that infusion goes.
Mhm. Wow.
And then you find things respond back to you
Right.
in that experience. Everyone doesn't have to experience the same thing.
Nor should we,
No,
right?
God, no.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm just so grateful for the time we got. I wish there was more. I'm gonna invite you back so we can talk
Yeah.
more things. Man, just such wisdom. Thank you. And for the way that you present it, this has been such a gift. I heard you mention your membership, and I would love for you to share with people how they can connect with you and start to learn from you. Where are the places that we can connect?
100%. So yes, my website is spirituallywareliving.com. And you had mentioned the quiz that I have. And by all means, feel free to take the quiz over at spirituallywareliving.com/quiz, where you do actually find where you are out of alignment. And so therefore, then you can figure out the tools that you need for that alignment faster. The membership is called the Energy Reset Circle. It's my little passion space that we do where we meet weekly on Sundays. There's a meditation, there's a group energy healing, and I offer a different focus every week of the month. So one of them is offering a frequency so that you can feel that frequency. Practical spiritual tool is another one. We do an energy forecast at the beginning of every month. So it's just a different place where you have all these tools, and it also keeps you really focused.
Mm, I
And
love.
then, of course, I also love to work one-on-one. So deep dives with my clients, explore, but it's all on my website over at spirituallywhereliving.com. So
Okay.
by all means.
I'm
And
going to
also
make
feel
sure.
free to check out
Yeah, I'm
the
going to make
our
sure it's
company.
all in the show notes so that
Yep.
everyone can head right over and connect with you and learn from you. Thank you so much for being here, Christina.
Thank you. All right. Love and light.